Hello, friends, family, and keepers of the faith, to yet another Del Boy blog. This one is year 2, blog 15, or in legacy numbers, it's blog 67, dated the 4th of the 6th, 2023. And what's my week been like? I like to do things a bit different when I start these things up. Well, what I can talk about is today, you wouldn't believe really, even though I've done 67 of these, that I still and ah so much about how I'm going to start these up, getting it all prepared, all the different views, um, get all the stuff around me that I might show, get my mind in a particular state where I can talk about it. Um, and it really is literally like about an hour and a half to do that. And it really should be just a simple matter of opening something up and clicking on record. But anybody that knows that tries to create content for YouTube knows you've always got that apprehension in the back of your mind, and then there's always that I want to do a good job, and then there's just everything about anxiety to start the thing off. But here we are, we've started it all off. I've pressed the button, there's no going back unless it all goes really, really wrong, and I have to start again, and it'll be something like 4 o'clock in the afternoon or more before you get to see it. And the other things that have been on my mind has really been, is this too long? But the trouble with me is I start and then I can't stop. Bit of control, maybe. But from what most people are telling me, they're enjoying what I do, which is great. And it is a diary. So I have to think about, it's not all about giving stuff to YouTube. It's also about giving my nephews and nieces the information they need about what happened this week. That's it. So enough about that. That's the intro out the way. Um, Other than you might have noticed that the controller has moved on my PlayStation 5. It means yes, I turned it on this week, and I feel a bit lightheaded. Oh, some great weight has come off my mind. Oh yeah, had a haircut. That was it. I knew there was a couple of things I needed to say to remind me that I had a haircut this week. So, enough of that rubbish. Let's get on with the news, which, as you know, is just there to date stamp this blog. And we start off, as we always do, with the war. I've written down as much as I can. My writing is terrible, but I did manage to do some prep. So, the war. Explosion near Dnipro uh, injures at least 20. An explosion hit a two-story dwelling near the central Ukrainian city of Dnipro, injuring at least 20. Injuring at least 20, said the regional governor, Seravai Lysiak. God, these names. Later, one man was pulled free and 3 children were among the wounded. Confirmation later on the exact numbers, but it was definitely caused by a Russian missile. Yes, this civilian um, casualties, um, we know they're going to happen, but it's still a heartstring to me, um, that all this killing is going on. And all we want really is this war to end, and we want it to have a good ending. And for that to happen, in my opinion, and I don't have too many, Russia are in the wrong, Ukrainian are in the right, and keep going, Ukraine. We're behind you. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Not much else in the news. We know that the last couple of weeks, the newspapers have been filled with the presenter Philip Schofield. It's now moved to both Philip Schofield and his co-presenter now, Holly Willoughby. I have nothing to say on the matter. I knew that this would be a sensational story. Did I think it would go on for 3 or so weeks? No. Do I care? No. So we move on, and the big story, I think, of the week, really, for world news was a train crash. Yes, at least 288 people killed and 850 injured in a multiple train collision in India's eastern Odisha state. One passenger train derailed and then hit another train on an adjacent track. It's considered the worst train crash this century. Final date death count is unknown, but it's expected to rise. Yes. I don't know too much about trains. There are a couple of people I know that know a lot more about them. This is in another country, India. I'm not quite sure what their train technology is like, but even with the highest technology, we have to understand that a derailment can occur. Um, I believe we're getting safer. I'm not scared to go on a train. I don't think I'd be that scared to go on a train in another country, depending on where it is, of course. Um, we have to consider these things that they are one offs, but they are incredibly sad. I mean, 288 killed and 850 injured. I mean, that's a huge number. Um, and it's non artificial as well. So it's, sorry, it's artificial, should I say. So we created the problem ourselves. So, yeah, my hearts and thoughts are with them. That's all I can say about that. And we move to the shout outs. Yes, there's a couple of shout outs because I've been a little bit more um, out there in YouTube land this week, possibly because I go back to work tomorrow. My hours will extend to 3 days a week for 2 of the next month's working regime, which is beyond the 2 days a week that I've had previously. And as we know, May was the time for me to get rid of the bulk of the holiday. So I should feel more get up and go, but at the moment I'm more filled with hesitation. And I had that thought in the back of my mind when we were discussing how to get rid of the bulk of my holiday, where I said that the regime is the thing that sort of like keeps me going. And now that regime is broken up, I feel apprehensive. And, you know, I'm sure it'll be perfectly okay once I get my laptop out and start working. But at the moment, it's like I'd rather be in the garden doing some stuff in the garden. But wouldn't we all? Um, so anyway, shout outs. Here we go. These are all people that I'm very grateful for leaving a comment, saying a nice thing or a bad thing. You know, I mean, I do want to hear what you don't like as well as what you do. But these people have spent their time doing stuff, writing stuff for me to read out and answer and just check out my general well-being. And they are this week Doug Scullery, Martroid, Mark Whatever, Steve's Gaming, Lord Evil, David Retro Gaming played badly, and I've put a star next to that, and that's to remind me he asked a question last week and I didn't answer it. So I've got to remember to do that. Colin Jones, Jambon, Milfy Swimbuckle, and then there was a couple of other comments left on some of the other videos that I did this week. So I've got thanks to Mainmeister, Magda K, because you know I can't pronounce your surname, and Denny, and then of course my old supporter of my blog, Cauldron, came onto one of my live streams. Very grateful for that. He was doing some gardening, I think, at the time. Got to remember these time zones and different countries people are in. Um, and that concludes all the shout outs. And like I say, thank you so much for that. And if we know anything, we know that I'm going to have a bit of product placement. And we're going to try and do the questions. Now, I've been a bit busy yesterday. Um, I went to a car boot sale. I went to see Spider-Man, the new cartoon at the cinema. I watched a film in the evening, and I had to prep this blog where I'm prepping for things like the war and the news and writing down the shout outs and that sort of stuff. So a busy day for me yesterday, and it tired me out, and I fell asleep as well for an hour, which didn't help with my sleep in the evening. So I'm hoping I'm going to keep my electric lights going in my head and don't come across as drunk or starting to fall asleep or any of that other stuff, because I need to get my energy levels up. So I pushed myself possibly a little bit too hard yesterday. But anyway, let's get on with the questions. And the first one we've got, and these are in no particular order, they're just what show up in my Yahoo comment section. The first one is Doug Scullery. So let's see what he's put. Hi, Dal. Comments and topics. Loved your walkie-talkie blog episode. More, please. Yes, I'll just touch upon that, although that's a little bit later on. I've always discussed walking in my blogs and my walk, and I wanted to sort of address how my walking came along, how it sort of like was addressed by me trying to get my back sorted, lower my weight, prove to family that I can be committed to something, and save money for the car that I wanted to buy. And this is back in 2014, 2015. And unfortunately, my father died during that period. And I've continued to keep the walking going. And I can't stress enough that when I'm doing my walking, how it clears my mind. It gives me that time to reflect or clear my mind or just do a simple reset and say, hey, that was then, this is now. Go back as if nothing's happened. Do you know what I mean? Like at work, you can have a bad thing occur, you go away, you make a cup of coffee, you go back, you forget about it. For some people, it takes a little bit more time to forget about it. So a nice half-hour walk is just a good way of spending that time. So more, please. I'll certainly try. If you liked it that much, that was just part of my walk, just a simple walking between houses rather than walking in the streets all the time for my walk that I do when I'm in my hometown. Of course, when I'm at work, I work in a different town and I do a different walk. That one's more into the shopping centre, but at least it's a walk. You asked what we'd like to change about the regular blog format. I'd change nothing. It's great already. News, shout outs, questions and answers. Don't change it. It works fine as it is. Well, that's really nice to know. I worked hard on a format. What would not be boring? What would entertain you guys? At the end, I tend to put more of the entertainment bit in. This bit's the questions, and of course, that's something that you guys that ask the question want to know. And of course, the beginning bit is the date stamp. So I think I've come across a format that it works to a point. Um, I will try and mix and match it up, but the only thing I'm concerned about at the moment is time. Some people, like my mentors and so forth, do recommend the 15-minute short, the 30-minute maximum extension time for something. and I take that all on board. But the blog is a bit unique. It's a weekend one as well. I could split this into a daily thing to do every day. I think I'd have a problem with that. I much prefer collating it all into a summary. Do you know what I mean? So we'll keep it as it is. Um, Free topic. See, I was right. So you got some questions really. So the topic here. What are your thoughts on the recent advances in robot tech? The most startling of which might be the Atlas robot by Boston Dynamics. Is a dystopian future looming? Ooh, now that's an interesting one. And you know me and dystopian futures and movies. Um, I know of this robot. Apparently, I think it's the most advanced robot. It does a lot more things that the commercial robot, because they make commercial robots, if I remember rightly. Um, and this one does more aerobic things, things that a man might be able to do easily, like I don't know, like climb, say. You can imagine how a robot would have to climb, how it would have to learn, how it would have to move its arms and elbows and legs and so forth. Um, I'm glad that people are putting development into that, as long as they've got a reason for it. Like do something that would be more hazardous for a human to do, say something for a Mars project. Um, it's just that when you combine that with the latest news on AI, artificial intelligence, you start to go down that, are we heading for a Terminator future, which would be well off. Um, I think the biggest problem we've got with all of this is ourselves. It's how we use it. What are the ethics of the people that are creating it for, and what is its use going to be? Is the army going to step in? Do you see what I mean? To give it more funding and then state, you promised us that it would become our soldier for the future. You know what I mean? That sort of stuff. You've really got to tread carefully on that, especially when AI is coming on at the same time in quite leaps and bounds. So I don't really have an opinion on it too much other than great. I think it's wonderful just how we can put technology to use, but it's its ultimate use that I've got a problem with. Oh, and another topic. Favorite 1970s dystopian future movie? Oh, you're being specific as well here. 1970s dystopian future movie. Mine has got to be Demon Seed. I'm sure you're familiar with it. Yeah, I am familiar with Demon Seed. The reason I was familiar with it was it's sort of like that stark reality when you get to the 90s and the 2000s that the house of the future um, is just around the corner. Um, if I remember rightly, Demon Seed is a computer controlled house or room, but it's also involves a pregnancy. Yeah, it does. It involves a pregnancy. Um, and they have to kill the artificial intelligence, don't they? And in the end, I think they killed the baby. Something to do with the pregnancy. What was how she became pregnant and the incubation period of the baby. Something that the artificial intelligence did. But you said 70s dystopian future. And I always refer back to the fact that I find it hard to separate the Charlton Heston trilogy, which is The Omega Man, Soylent Green, and Planet of the Apes. And Planet of the Apes is the 60s, so I can't include that. So then I have to go to the other two, which is Soylent Green and Omega Man. And I like those films for two distinctly different reasons. But if we're talking about what could possibly happen, what is more realistic, then I'll go with Soylent Green as being my favourite. Food shortage is what an overpopulation is the dystopian future of Soylent Green, and those are on people's minds right now, as it should be. So I'm going to go with Soylent Green, and thank you so much for that brilliant couple of questions and topics. I hope I gave a good answer. Salute, sir. Jambon's come in. Hi, Dalboy. Thanks for another great blog, and thanks for answering the question. I enjoyed hearing about what you used to wear when you were going out on the RAS. Yeah. I see from the comments below that Denny is also a waistcoat guy. If it wasn't for the fact that we'd be mobbed by the ladies, I would have suggested us all meeting up in our waistcoats and going out on the town. Wouldn't that be a nice thing to think about on how that would go? Yeah. I don't know whether I could get into my waistcoats now. Be something to aim for with my walks. So that's great. I'll just read a little bit further ahead. Don't think there's a question. No, there isn't. Thank you, Jambon, because it's any little memory or a comment that makes me smile, even for even for just if it's something that sticks with me all week or something that is just of the moment, has got to be a good thing, and that made me laugh. So thank you very much for that. Then we get to Denny. That's great. Denny's comment has appeared. I thought it disappeared yesterday. Um, and it wasn't showing even this morning until I hit a button that said not top comments but all comments, and it suddenly appeared. Now I usually do that as a matter of course on a Sunday, so I never miss one. But yesterday I had so much to do I didn't click that filter, so I missed it. But it's here, and oh my god, we've got a page and a half. Thanks, Denny. No, that's great. Hi, Adele. Sorry to hear about your troubles with Amazon. Yes, we talked about that last week. They actually made things worse for you, giving the hacker to do his or hers thing again. I'd be well pissed off. We're missing my pre-order prices. Yes, that's the worst thing that could happen. I understand why they did it. Don't get me wrong. I just think sometimes that if you read between the lines, if you give enough information, and if you think about it logically, resetting things back for you to reset again is not the right thing to do when it was the main email account that started the whole process in the first place. The good news is that I managed to take control of that account enough that the hacker I don't think saw it. So it was a half hour of a nightmare that happened again. It was an extra hour, therefore, of fixing at just one particular website, Amazon, because there was the first time I did it and then there was redoing it. So that's an hour. And if you times that by 70 or 80 accounts, then it's taking up all of your time. And the hacker wins because not only does he get money, which I get back, but all our insurance premiums go up. Not only does that occur, but he does what he intended, or she intended, them, yeah? Which is cause disruption, be a pain in the arse. So I still have that in my back of my head, seeing a faceless person with a smile, knowing that they caused so much disruption. But hey, I've forgotten about it a little bit now, and I'm starting to ease. So if you're watching, I'm not eased up enough not to make things difficult for you, because I've put some things in place that you won't like. Just a warning. News. So this is last week's news and opinions. I agree with what you say about Philip Schofield. Really a pointless entity. 2. Croc. Yes, I never understood Steve Irwin taking the chances he did, yet his death was by a stingray, which is a harmless fish. Just very unlucky to get caught with its barb. And number 3, yes, very sad about Tina Turner. Another loss from my childhood. Emily Morgan from ITV News was another shock death due to cancer. One day I hope they eradicate this disease. Well, don't we all? And I hope we do it in my lifetime. Um, we must never forget just how strong the C word is, cancer. Um, they say it affects 1 in every 2 people. That's a horrible statistic. Um, of course, if that's the biggest contributory to death, population will expand. But we'll tackle that after we eradicate it. Because I'd love cancer to go. Shout outs. Thanks again for answering my question on the Hulk TV series. Probably one of the best TV adaptations of superhero for its time. Very much for its time. And very much the best, really. There wasn't much to choose from, though, when it comes to superheroes. But just as a drama, it works. It's a little bit like Quincy. Quincy brought to light some of the plights we have in the crap court systems that we've got. You know, how stupid we are on how we get people to get away with things, loopholes, and also just what advancements we've got in medicine. The Hulk brought along social things, you know, race, creed, um, you know, it's it's an unusual show that I think its longevity is based on its writing. It definitely wasn't too much in its special effects, although thinking back at the time, it definitely wasn't bad for what it had. So we move to Steve's question. Um, Definitely has to be the truly awful Batwoman series for the worst superhero series. I'd love to say why, but my comments would get moderated. Yeah, I'd put a few swear words in. Bit of product placement. Jambon, I have quite a selection of waistcoats I wear in the summer when I go out with the other half when we meet up in the afternoon lunch. Yeah, just like Jambon said. This goes on for a bit. What I watched on TV, I'm still enjoying Prehistoric Planet Season 2 from Apple TV. Cover many dinosaurs that we don't hear of. One thing, though, they do tend to guess many habits that they had. Definitely worth a look, though, if you're interested in paleontology. Well, I am, but I don't have Apple TV. Um, it's one of those things where I know I can look for it in other means, and I think I will. I haven't watched a good dinosaur National Geographic type showish thing for a while, so I might do that. Silo, also from Apple TV, is basically based on Fallout and has a hint of Logan's Run. There's another to check out if you're interested. Yeah, I think I will. Um, my question for next week. Oh my God, there's a block here. Okay, as you know, now, Network has gone into liquidation. Yes, guys, I should have put that in the news. We'll talk about that in a minute. Personally, I'm devastated. Sadly, I don't know the founder of Network, Tim Bredos, died last year. Probably from this point, the writing was on the cards. What is your take on the situation? Do you think that this will affect physical sales and releases of lesser known niche programs? Do you envisage another company coming in, like Fabulous Films, to cherry pick unreleased ITV productions, like a Sapphire and Steel, to release them on Blu ray? And do you think this will have a knock on effect and see labels like Fabulous Films and Talking Pictures close down? Finally, do you think there's any chance someone will come in and take over the the mental of I think I'm supposed to say mantle. Yeah, sorry. The mantle of network and resurrect their library and strike a deal with ITV. Such a nice, rounded question with major points to talk about, which I'll try and do quickly. Um, I was devastated myself when I heard that Network went into liquidation, which is pure speculation, but we know they're gone. ITV chose, I think, a particularly good distributor that has, for many years, brought out many programs that I would not have seen for a long time. And only through some streaming services like ITVX, BritBox, have we been able to see them. But that aids the streamer and not the collector. The collector is the collector of physical media. And from a physical media point of view, we're now in a horrible situation because ITV is a big channel, but it gets its money through advertisement. BBC set up its own distribution arm. ITV didn't set up this arm and bought them in. From that point of view, you've now got to find somebody that will buy those licenses once more, or pick up the tally of debt that Network would have brought out to purchase the back catalogue and continue to sell. I think what is more likely to happen is that ITV will find another distributor. I think Network will die in the dust. And the reason for that is we don't know what the debt would be. But it makes more sense sometimes to re-buy the license for you to distribute stuff. Now, the sad side of all of that is that Network worked closely with other third parties to clean up old TV programs and put them into Blu-ray, because most of their stuff was DVD. They'd recently started to improve and move into Blu-ray, again one technology behind what we're at, because we're at 4K now, and bring out some real gems with some superb clarity to the picture. You mentioned a program, Sapphire and Steel, and there's one particular one where we were both in agreement that we'd read somewhere that that was just around the corner. You therefore have to wonder, if a person starts from scratch as a distributor, can they get that transfer for a pittance? Or do they have to start from scratch? And if they start from scratch, this new distributor is going to be ultra cautious and look at the sales figures of Network and close down a lot of product that will become now out of print. So a lot of things to discuss there. My opinion is ITV will quickly find a distributor. My hope is that the back catalogue is kept, because there's no point keeping it because of a debt. Hopefully, maybe the government might step in. Fat chance. But you got to remember that they bought out a lot of companies during pandemics, and the steel industry they've helped out a million times. And our TV is a major product to sell in other countries. I know that Randall and Hopkirk sells quite well in the States. Its aim in the 60s was to be broadcast in the States. So with the physical media side being there to sell in the States, you've got to work, I think, closely and be more sensible possibly with some of the choices. And I say that with a very tongue-in-cheek like that, because what is fun for somebody else is crap for somebody else, and you've got to have enough customer out there to make it viable. This is where Kickstarter has helped so many people. startup businesses and get a gauge on who wants the product. Um, Network's ultimate downfall might have been too much product. Could be. Don't know. Talking totally off the top of my head now. But I've got no qualms, Denny, that streaming, as good as it is, they know there's a market for physical media, and that's you and I. And from that point of view, I think they'll find someone. I hope they come back like the phoenix from the ashes, and let's have our fingers crossed on that. Thank you so much, Denny. Salute to you as always. Bit of product placement. And we move to yet another equally great contributor who I have enormous respect for, which is Colin Jones. Colin, so here we go. He's mentioned a few things bullet pointed, as always. When the camera went funny, I thought it was me. I was about to refresh the page. Yes, I keep looking up just to see that sick lip sync is going on. I've got a funny feeling reading lots of forums that it's to do with the type of cable and the type of camera, and that if it's possible to have the camera directly going into the USB 3 port, which I can't do because the camera is at this height for me on my eye level, and the machine is on the floor down here, and it has to go past lots of wood and so forth to get to the port. So I've researched another cable, changed that one cable out of all of the other cables I've got, plugged it into a new port, and we're seeing how it is. And let's hope it's okay, because past that, I just get rid of Logitech cameras and find another camera manufacturer that doesn't have this issue. And apparently, it does seem to be prime for Logitech cameras, this particular problem, which you have to deactivate the camera to refresh. It's something to do with JPEG count and so forth. I do remember the water sliders, but you never had one. That's where I was talking about that polythene yellow slide. Yeah. I couldn't do a hot tub either. Your answer was a good one. Thanks. Seem to be on the right lines this week. My God, nearly fell off my chair. Um, with regards to body weight, you'll always revert to your natural state if you stop working out, etc. Note the word natural here. It's what your body wants to be and feels more comfortable with. It's not necessarily a sign of bad health. Moderate exercise like you're walking and a reasonable diet are all you really need to stay healthy. And I'd agree. That's very true. And as you get older, reasonable is the new non-acceptable, because as you get older you want to do less, so you've got to gauge that. We push ourselves in our early years depending on your demeanor, and that's probably where your analogy of natural body condition is. I was heavy for the hugest amount of time. I lost a lot of weight in my 20s, early 30s, but my natural state by then would have been to be quite biggish, which is why I talked about my chin and the chest area being the bits where flab moves to, because you've got arteries and veins and all sorts of stuff, and fat deposits trap themselves in areas there other fat is. It's like a magnet, draws itself. So you tend to find that to burn that fat off in those areas is quite difficult. Um, so thanks for everything you got there. I'm glad I helped you with the Wizard of War source code video. The question for your next blog: I know you get a lot of DVDs and Blu-rays, but what was the last non-movie music CD you bought? So we're talking CD only. We're talking about non-soundtrack or movie and TV soundtracking. I take it that also means classical music. Well, you'd have to go back quite some time. Unless, thinking about this, I have bought presents, which again were CDs. So I did buy a CD album for somebody at work that needed cheering up. I can't remember for the life of me what it was, because it's one of those things where I researched it, never heard of it, bought it, forgot about it. So from my personal point of view, we're talking about pop music or country music or synth music. And I think it would have been the expanded Jean-Michel Jarre's Oxygen album, which would be a couple of years now. Yeah, Colin. It'd be because I think he expanded upon and brought it out as a deluxe set. And I think, yes, I bought it. I bought the deluxe version. Other than that, just like you, and I dare say a lot of others, and I'm guessing here, we stream, listen, download all of our music these days. And therefore, the CD is again something I'm not touching upon unless I'm buying it for physical media reasons, and that would be my collection, and my collection is soundtracks. So, yeah, that was a difficult one to answer. Thank you, Colin. It made me think, and I hope I touched upon possibly a topic for future to discuss. Brilliant. We've got to Milfy. Hello again, Dell. Thank you, by the way, Milfy. If this is the first time anybody's dialed in, Milfy is a sort of like a stay part of my blog. Every week he's got a comment or a question that makes us all think, because he doesn't do it just to me. He addresses it sometimes to the audience for them to shout out and give their opinion to. So let's see here. Two short shite questions for the next blog. If there's anything you've seen or done throughout your life, no matter how strange, disgusting, or bizarre, that you think could be turned into a computer game, something you've taken part in or even just heard about, anything. So, is there anything that you've seen or done that could be turned into a computer game that's through my life? Well, let's have a little think. We've talked about my collection of statues, my collection of comics, my collection of soundtracks, my 30 plus years in computers, my losing weight through walking and running, my times at the gym, my learning judo for a short period of time when I was at school, all of the sports I've done: badminton, golf, cricket, football, rugby, computer games, something that I've done. That's such a difficult one. Um, Eliminating the sport, because every sport I think has nearly been done. Even some obscure ones in things like world games and stuff like that. When it comes to collections, they're boring for a computer game. Although I remember in Ghetto Blaster on the Commodore 64, you had to go around collecting batteries for your Ghetto Blaster and then tapes to play in the street to get people dancing, to then get the tape to its eventual shop to sell. So again, that's been done. We've all been to the seaside and we've had Seaside Special. Those are all task set games. Why am I thinking task set at the moment? Um, I'm going to be a stupid answer here and say software support tycoon. I don't know if it's been done, but I spent a lot of my time in software support where I dealt with people's problems and fixing them and getting them back up and running, along with change management, where a new product would be out there and we had to keep in tandem the old system and the new system, and organize engineers. So, like some of the Tycoon games, like Game Developer, Pizza Tycoon, and all of that, a really boring one to do would be Software Support Tycoon. And if anybody is out there that wants some help with that, I got no end of anecdotes and I've got no end of experience enough to say what some of the hurdles would be, um, for developing that game. So, well, good one. Thanks for that, Milfy. For a secondary question, oh God, let's face it, the first one was arse. He does make me laugh. What game from the 8-bit and 16-bit eras do you consider to have the best storyline? Either the storyline of the game itself or how the game came to be. Now, there's a number of tales of how games came to be. Many documentaries that have been filmed and put out there. I'm pretty sure we've all reveled in how Elite came out, how those two got together, how they went to try and sell the product, and had immense frustration in the fact that the game was unlike anything else on the market. There was no lives system, there was no scoring system really, other than, you know, becoming elite, the status of your character. Let me just have some product placement while I think. But what game do I think had the best storyline? Well, most games these days are story led. I mean, I draw my attention to Spider-Man that came out in 2018, has a story. Miles Morales, the follow-up to it, has a story. The Last of Us has just been brought out as a TV series and probably has one of the quintessential stories in a game. And in fact, that would probably be the one that most people would talk about. And then you've got the series, haven't you? Like Uncharted, uh, the Assassins games. I'm having great difficulty now thinking because I've muddled it up with stories of how a game came out and stories that are in a game. And although one of us, the last, the Last of Us, is going to be the obvious answer, I'm going to go with Spider-Man because he's my sort of like go-to guy. There have been a number of story-driven adventures he's been in computer games, and some of them have hit the mark, some of them haven't. But the last one wasn't too bad, and I'm going to go with that because I can't think of any other answer any other than that. Thank you so much, Milfy, and I'm sorry it's such a shitty answer, but it was the best one I could think of. David, retro games played badly, and I've got a star about him. I've got to go to another area. See, this is gonna take a little bit of time while I go back to a previous comment and then come back to this one. In fact, I'll do it now, shall we? So let me go back to a previous blog, bring up the comments, find David in the list. There he is, and bring up. So, had pets all my life. House isn't the same without them. Just played Mr. Mosquito. I have a question. Right, okay. What's your most nostalgic and or treasured possession and why? Oh my God. Thank you so much, David. And I'm sorry I missed your question. What's your most nostalgic and or treasured possession? Yeah, I'm sure we've all had the talk with our fathers or mothers that when the question of death comes up, they've always turned around and said, "Don't worry, I'm going to leave this for you." They'd show you a trinket. And my dad, when I was in my early teenagers, showed me a watch that his dad gave to him. So it sounded like a hand me down. And it was for 25 years service working for Alcan, which is a big aluminium company now defunct in our town. I don't know if they're defunct as a company. Alcan, I'll have to look that up. And I thought it was a hand me down that my dad would give to me, but apparently he gave that to my nephew in the end. And my nephew turned it down, so it's still here. And the reason he turned it down is because the watch was given for 25 years service and it was made by the Queen's jewelers. What that basically means is that to get the thing cleaned, to get the thing maintained, the idea is that you went to London and you got it regularly maintained by the Queen's jewelers. And I've forgotten who they were, but I have got it written down on the card in the presentation box. And the watch has not been running for years. I mean, it was given for 25 years service, and that was when he retired in 1971, and then it was given to my dad when he died in 1976, and then my dad kept it, and another 30 years plus go by before it's then put back into its presentation box, still in a broken state. So this watch has got a huge history to it. So I've got that watch because my nephew didn't want it. But the thing that my dad left me was a ring. It was a signet type ring. It's got 3 ruby jewels in it, um, with an unusual cut apparently to these gems, and that is my probably my most treasured possession. But that doesn't go with nostalgia. Nostalgia is different. And I remember my dad giving me when I was 5 or 6 this huge toy train. It was a huge train that it took C-cell batteries. I remember that as well. And it's one of those ones that had one of those spinny wheels underneath it, plus normal wheels. And it went round in a circle and moved forward. It bumped into something, went round in a circle, and then moved away, etc., etc. And it made the normal train noises for the shunting, and all of that. But the most fun thing about it all was smoke came from the funnel on the front of the train. And I never, even now, I don't know where it is. I think it's still in the house. How it made that smoke come up, and it was given to kids. It wasn't done through water. Now, as a kid, I always wanted one of those little steam things, that looked like they were made from Meccano, that you boiled water and they went forward, and they were so bloody expensive you couldn't have one. This was my dad's answer to that, where he bought me a toy train that doesn't go on a train track, that basically just entertained by going round in circles with smoke coming out. I have to look at that, actually. Now in my adulthood, I could buy one of those steam driven cars or steamrollers where you boil the water in the actual vehicle itself and it goes along. They're sought after, I think. You've actually cracked onto something there, David. Thank you. I hope that gives you the answer. It's a train and a watch or a ring, um, for that. And now I've got to go back and find all the comments again. Bear with me. Here is first. Back to David. There we go. And what else did we put? So what you put this week is Keeping me company at work, which I'm very happy about. So sad about Tina Turner's passing. Yep, so am I. Love the Hulk series, just like me. I've often considered a pond. Yes, we were talking about a swimming pool, which the closest we got to was a pond. That was good. That was good. Yeah. Then I don't know if you're joking here. I'm pretty sure you are. You have a hot tub. Yeah. Okay. Only hot tub we've got is farting in the bath when you have one. Um, you missed my question. I hope I've corrected that. Thank you, David, for bearing with me with that. And as always, I enjoyed the trailers and thanks for the company. Thank you so much, David. It's great to have your company here, and thanks for your support. We move to Martroid. Nice one, Dell, as usual. It was interesting what you said about Nintendo and their efforts to stop the Dolphin emulator. My main gripe with Nintendo is that they closed the Wii shop. Now, I understand why, but I used to love buying the odd game off theirs as and when I could afford it, so I miss it. And I mentioned and I read all that out because that's the whole point about streaming. You have no control how long you can have it for. It's why I prefer the good old games method over the Steam method, uh, where you buy it, you have the choice to play it through their front end like Steam does, or you could just download the executionable and install it as a separate installation. And as long as, if it's got some multiplayer element and that goes down, you're stuffed really, because there's nothing, you have no control over that. But they've even gone back to some of the early days with things like Rise of Nations and got those games to work even though the servers are down. They managed to patch it enough for you to play the main campaign, so that's great. Thanks, Martroy, for that comment, and it's good because I managed to clear up something else that bugs me, which is streaming and why physical media is for me. Mark Whatever, great video as usual, Dell. Thanks very much. I enjoyed the trailers. Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Mark, and for continuing to watch and support me. And Lord Evil. Weather here has been nice too, except it's raining a bit today, but it's only light rain. To be honest, I actually like light rain, especially at night. I find it really relaxing beating off my window. Really helps me sleep. And I can't agree more with you there, really, Lord. I believe that relaxation tapes, or even if you turn to our lovely friend, which we won't shout out the name of, but begins with A and ends with Exa, um, even plays water music, um, sounds in the garden, and stuff for people that have problems sleeping. And you end with great blog. And thank you so much for that. And that ends the question side and the first hour. So, whoa, we've got to keep going. And so far, lip sync is perfectly okay. What have I watched on YouTube this week? Thanks, guys. I'm just going to check because I don't see one from Steve. No, not a problem. Yes, so we moved to what's watched on YouTube. So you know that I've got some things that I always watch, and there are usually two programs, and that is This Week in Retro and Tech Moan, and both of them brought out content this week. They're definitely worth watching. This Week in Retro concentrated on three subjects: something called the McDonald's Tetris handheld, WinXP has been cracked, and a closed shop of 30 years has been reopened with all of its old stock intact. It was interesting. So there were some things there which were interesting to me, but the most interesting one is the one that you think it wouldn't be, because Windows XP has been cracked for years. But they talked about another method to crack it, which they believe doesn't count as a crack. It's worth a watch. XP is something that still has its place, because even I myself sometimes like to go back to games that Windows 10 and 11 and 8 and 7 have problems playing. XP being the closest to 95. So you have that need for you to have a closed off non-internet version of the Windows operating system for you to play those games. And it'd be nice to keep the internet up, but of course the internet also checked the activation, which is why most of us have been managing to have XP but not have the internet on, which is a funny way of keeping the system alive. Bit of talking, I'm afraid. So that was definitely worth watching. And Techmoan brought out one of his favourite little hobbies is internet radio. And I've started to get a bit of a buzz myself to it. My Denon surround sound app down there has got Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, aerials, and of course all of the sound systems like Dolby, Atmos, DTS, Dolby Digital, THX, etc., etc. But he was looking at a product that has come down by 60%, down to below £50, which was a internet radio handheld, which had dual speakers, stereo speakers. And he wanted to get it out there because he feels that the price would go back up. And internet radio is something he's starting to become quite interested in. And I have to admit, it's very intriguing. There are thousands of radio stations that some companies will allow you to go through them to get to all the channels in the world. You know, obviously there'll be ones that you can't pick up because of licensing, but the majority of them can be picked up, and there's thousands of them. And these little devices allow us, even on our phones, to be able to listen to Sri Lanka, America, Japan, China, India, Germany, France, the list goes on. And all of those will have subclasses of pop, rock, podcasts, etc., etc. So if you think about it, sometimes you might just go, I wonder what they're playing in California at the moment. I can just imagine me being on Route 66, having my hood down and the radio on. I wonder what they're listening to in, I don't know, Los Angeles. You put it on, you got all the channels, you bookmark them, and you can hear what they're hearing at the time. So you have to remember time zones. So you might be a bit shocked at what they're listening to at 3 in the morning, but that's the sort of thing we're talking about. Definitely worth a watch, those two programs. The rest, not too much have I watched. I will just touch upon a few. Retro Gamer Nation did his roundup of Commodore 64 new stuff for June. That was good. There's a couple of new exciting Commodore 64 games. I'm just going to notice that the lip sync might be slightly out now, but at least it didn't corrupt, and that's better. Yeah. So that's definitely worth it. Retro Gamer Nation, the Commodore 64 roundup for June with a couple of new games. Gen X Grown Up did an Atari VCS ranked lineup for only Activision games. So imagine the Atari 2600 or the VCS, but separating it out to just the Activision cartridges and then ranking them. That was quite good because some people class the Activision label as being the only quality label for the VCS or 2600 system, which is doing it the others a bit of a disservice. But yes, for a long time I thought the same. And then Never Knows Best. You have to write that down. Never Knows Best did a 6-hour documentary on the entire history of video games, which has taken me a week to get through. It's obviously, I feel, not complete. I noticed at certain points bits that weren't in it, but it's pretty darn close. And it brought back so many memories of all of those launch consoles, launch computers, what killed the industry, what started it back up, what was going on in Japan while the crash was going on in America, etc., etc. It's a very interesting watch. And then, lastly, I watched a couple of my started to become staple guys to watch on YouTube, which are Rock God 2004, Play Tendo Guy, and Cinema X-Men, who have a panel on a Wednesday talking about movies. You can ask them any questions you want, even music as well, and TV. But they've all got their own individual channels. And Scott, the movie critic, has his own panel on a Friday, which is a bit shorter, but equally as good. And the sort of like similarity for those two is the panel guests. You've got a couple of people that are in both. So we've turned our attention to Rock God 2004, who's been in my thoughts all this week, as is a number of people are mentioned at the end of that this statement as well, in the fact that Rock God, as I mentioned last week, has a wife who's now having her second kidney transplant, and it's the last chance saloon for them. And the good news is that she's passing more water, which is a good sign. Apparently, it's gone from several millimeters to 120 milliliters, which is great. Um, they've got to do a biopsy on the kidney. The reason for that is to make sure that what previously attacked the last kidney transplant they had isn't attacking this one, which apparently is a better hope in this case because it's come from a donor rather than the kidney last time, which came from her sister. So the body chemistry is totally different, is slightly different, and the one gene in it might hold off the attack that killed off the last kidney. My thoughts are with you, matey. And that brings to my attention a number of things that have been going on in Discord, where we've got a couple of stalwart friends like Wee Bob Art, to mention one, LFC, my own mate Mainmeister, Panther, myself included, that have all in the last couple of months had something horrible happen to them, or a challenge that has made it difficult for them to keep going. And we've all found it within ourselves to be able to do that. And we all should pat ourselves on the back. But we also need to acknowledge that sometimes we need help and we need to mention that we're going through these problems. And I feel blessed that some people can approach me and ask my opinion on something or just give a nice, kind word that will get them through the day. Um, a thumbs up to all those people that are having difficulties at the moment. We all have them. Then we move on to Playtendo Guy, who did some pickups on Blu-ray for 101 Films and did his first gaming live stream yesterday. Yes, he showed off Street Fighter 6 on his PS5 last night. I just about caught a part of it while I was doing my blog because I was going through stuff I've watched this week and it flashed up on my phone. The game itself, I don't know enough about, but the last Street Fighter game I think I played was the fifth one on the 3DS. So I'm not a big fighty person. But apparently, what they seem to have done this time is what most of them do, and that is you've got very few characters, 16, I think he mentioned, and it sounds like it's going to be a DLC that's a um, additional content purchase through its game span, which I hate. But the other thing they've done is they've put it into a real world lobby, from what I could see. In other words, you're dropped off into the same city as where the Street Fighter event is, and you can play it as an arcade, which is just going through the characters, or you can go into this lobby and you can have random fights with NFCs in the place. And I think the lobby is online, which means that you can have online fights with other people's avatars. Quite interesting. That might do the game give it some legs. Because I've got a funny feeling that Street Fighter can't be really going on much more. Surely, we turn around and say that the Street Fighter 2 game was such a revelation that it put the industry back 10 years, really, because every console, every game in the arcades that came out was a Street Fighter 2 beta. Um, so it's a little bit like when I was talking to Main Master the other week. The replacement for the Sierra, which I still can't remember what it is, the name eludes me. The Cortina was replaced, I think, with the Sierra. The Sierra was then replaced with this car that I just can't think the name of. What we're trying to say is the shape of the car was so iconic that all cars then started to lose their unique feature that made you know that that was a particular car. What I'm trying to say, like, everybody knew what the Mark II Golf is, but if you look at the Mark 7 or 8 Golf now, it looks like the 7th version, the 6th version, the 5th. There are very few differences. The Audi A3, my car of choice, hasn't gone through too many changes. You can easily identify that's an Audi A3, and the style of it has not changed that much. So anyway, Playtendo brought out Street Fighter 6 as a live stream to play, and then Cinema Axeman went through his monthly pickup of Blu-rays, which was great. I like those pickups because they sometimes show me a film that I didn't quite think of, and therefore it jogs my memory that I need to order that, because I shouldn't be just trapped in my own I only buy steel books. There are other films out there that will never see the light of day on steel books, so I need to bring that in. And that's what I watched on YouTube. And we moved to what I watched of your stuff on YouTube, so we're getting pretty close to the end. So we start off with Down the Rabbit Hole. Yes, his name props up on my phone, and I instantly click on his little picture, and I'm suddenly addressed with some lovely entertainment to watch. And what did he do this week? He did um, a different Defender version video. So what I mean by that is he looked at the original Defender on the arcades, worked his way up through different Defender clones, and finally got to what the whole video was about in the first place, which was a Game Boy Advance version of Defender, to see whether it was as bad as what he thought it might be. Because Defender's incredibly hard not to write the code for, but to get the feel when you consider that you're trapped with whatever the handheld's got as a control method, a D-pad or an analog stick or only two buttons or whatever. You've got those hurdles that you've got to get by. And we were both very pleasantly surprised at how good the Game Boy Advance Defender was. So that's definitely worth a watch. And then he talked about something that I've not thought about in a long time, and it's a term. It's called the Mandela effect. And I remember the first time that I was told about the Mandela effect and what it actually meant. And if from memory, I've got to remember this. The Mandela effect is where you think you are totally right about something, but actually you couldn't be more wrong. And it was called the Mandela effect because there was this woman back in the day that swore that Mandela has died in prison, and everything that you're seeing on TV for his update on how he is in prison is all false because he's dead, and she couldn't have been more wrong. Right. So Rabbit has talked about the Mandela effect and then talked about how the Mandela effect affected him in one particular part of his life, and it was to do with something to do with Star Wars, if I remember rightly. So that's definitely worth a watch. And then we move. So thank you very much, and my salute to you, Rabbit. Then we get to Ponder, who did a couple of videos. Most of them are the arcade challenges, the ones we're talking about where um, you're doing a high score challenge for Mainmeister and you're doing a challenge from somebody called Tuber, I think. So the two games this time were Raiden X and Kung Fu Master. And of them all, Kung Fu Master was the one that entertained me the most because it's such an infuriating game, and like him, I find it totally unfair at times in that game. So that's definitely worth a watch. And then we come to Mainmeister, my old mate Mainmeister, who also has a question which I've just remembered, and I'll come back to that at the end of this particular section. He did his waffle this week, and then he started off a brand new podcast, which I've listened to twice now, and is definitely worth a listen. You can catch it on YouTube, but generally just look for your normal podcast broadcaster. My one of choice is Podbay. Um, but it's asking friends or sometimes people within the gaming industry what their free top games they would take with them to a desert island, and free games that you need to mention that should never have seen the light of day. So it is a desert island type feel to it, but there is also that camaraderie of making a person feel at ease, asking them questions about what they do, why they do it, etc. In their real life. Um, so definitely worth a listen. Yes. Then we get to Robert's Retro Gaming, who, as we all know from now for the last couple of weeks, from me, I'm a big champion of his channel, and he's having renovation work done at his house, so he's sort of in exile. So every video he's doing at the moment has got "in exile" next to it. He's up to, I think, episode 18 now, if I remember rightly, of Minecraft. He started to go back to Dwarf Fortress, so he's done an in exile range of videos for that, for which I think he's up to the fourth one. And he also did a Gunsmoke arcade watch him play video. I don't think it was a high score kerfuffle, but he had great fun playing Gunsmoke. And as you should do, because Gunsmoke is one of those arcade games that I love as well, although I'm a bigger fan of Commando than I am Gunsmoke. But that's not taking away how good Gunsmoke is. And then we get to Steve's gaming. Good old Steve. We do my salute, don't we, to you, you 70-year-old bastard. Sorry, you lovely person, you. And I got the year wrong as well. You're not 70. You're 80, aren't you? You old. No. Steve's a great mate. I'm sure he doesn't mind me saying all of that stuff just now. He's done 2 videos. He's done a random Spectrum game video again. This time it was an hour long, I think, and there was a bit more variety in this one, even though he has no control because it's a randomizer that he's using. But the most fun I had was watching him play a new game he bought on Steam. Yes, on occasion I buy a game on Steam. Sometimes I'll go, why don't I start this off in a stream tonight because there's nothing on telly, and see what other people think of it. Uh, and even bring it back and do it as a series. So he did one called Ninth Dawn 2, which is a role playing game. And although I wasn't enamored by it, it was good. It was good from the price point. But I do think to myself that I couldn't really spend time in that game myself personally, just purely because I wasn't really awed by the story as a first thing. The second thing is that most games like that are driven to me based on what the next area you're going to move into is going to look like. And there's a very simplistic approach to the graphics in this game, which will work for the majority of certain people. But for me, I'll have got bored because it's very much like a Paper Mario approach to graphics. And then we move finally to 20th Century Gaming, who basically just updated his channel to say what he's going to be doing in the future on Commodore 64. And that rounds that up, other than Mainmeister's question, which I nearly forgot. Because he asked me on the phone when he phoned me. Yes, I do have celebrities calling me on my landline. And I wrote it down. I've got to find the damn thing now. I wrote it on a page. It's got quite some scribble on it. And I do apologise here. Not that far away now. Yes. So here's his question. If I never got into video gaming, what would I be doing today? Or in my life now? Very interesting question, Mainmeister, and I thank you for that because you're making me think a little bit and also forcing me to think for the future now. Because the purpose of the question is, if I never got into video gaming, what would I be doing? And video gaming has been around for me for years, but it's not been a business. So what would I be doing if it hadn't been the time that I discovered computers at school and personally myself by reading books and then owning one myself and buying games? What would I have filled my time up with? I think it would have been either reading, photography, or sport, like cricket, because I hate watching cricket, but I love playing it. And I was a pretty good batsman, I think. My dad taught me to bat. My dad knew that I wasn't particularly fast, so he taught me to spin bowl. So I was generally third bowler in the lineup because we had two fast bowlers first, then there was a spin bowler, and then a slow bowler for the fourth that we had in our team at school. And then when it came to batting, the one thing about it was I didn't wear glasses until I was 20. So my eyesight was pretty darn good. And I remember judging a ball that I needed to move a couple of steps forward off of my crease to hit the ball, because that's what you do in cricket. You find the optimum method to get the ball to the boundary, whether that's in the air for a six or skimming along the ground for a four. The boundary is what you're looking at. So thanks very much for that. I think I would probably be, Mainmeister, um, something in sport or something in photography, because I equally love my stuff that I do with my camera, and it's why I'm looking at cameras to buy at the moment, which I'll give you an update on very, very shortly when I've bought it, because the body of the camera itself is £2 grand. So when we get to it, we'll get to it. So then we come to what have I watched on TV, and there hasn't been an awful lot. There was a documentary on Friday called the Dick Emery documentary, which lasted 2 hours and showed off pure comic talent of Dick Emery and his many characters, and then his downfall, why he died, the many affairs he had, and all sorts of stuff that was in his life. And the saddest part of it was he never wanted to be a father, but was. And every time he met his kiddies, he didn't really treat them as his own. And I find that a great shame. We'll never know really why now. I don't think there's been an autobiography of Dick Emery. But I might look one up, see if there is. And then we've got the Formula One season carries on this week. So it was on last week, it's on this week. It was at Monaco last week, it's the Spanish Grand Prix this week. So as soon as this broadcast is recorded and I'll be uploading it, I'll be going and watching the Formula One. And then there's been a couple of films that I've watched. One of them is Prospect, which is on Prime at the moment, which contains the bloke who's in The Mandalorian and The Last of Us. His name is Paolo. Not his surname, it escapes me. But he's a fantastic actor, and this Prospect film is definitely one I'd recommend. It's an interesting science fiction film, but don't let that put you off. There's some relevant stuff in there that we can all take away with us. And the last bit then is, before I do my show and tell and so forth, is what I've done this week. So I've done a blog, I've done 2 live streams where I've showed off some games. Those games were Unepic, Bolt Gun, and Soul Survivors. Yes, I enjoyed those, especially Unepic. Unepic is a game that I haven't played in years, and it amused me that when I loaded it back up, it said Del Boy's playing this for the first time, and I'm going, hey, no, I played it 8 years ago. But I dare say they lose track of games once you've uninstalled them. And then I did my walking blog, which I had great fun with. So we move that all to one side and we start talking a little bit more about me, and we start talking about what I've bought. So first of all, we'll change the camera. Because there hasn't been that much that I've bought this week that's come through. I think there's more next week. There's this John Wick 3 steel book that's come through. That's because I think the fourth film has come out in cinema the last couple of weeks. So that was a pickup. Um, then there was one of my other omnibuses. I don't think I showed this last week, so it must have come this week. It was Daredevil Volume 2. That's if I did show that last week, I do apologise. But I bought some things to help me. I bought this. Now this looks a bit weird, but if you watch The Big Bang Theory, you'll see that Sheldon folds his t-shirts up, and I'm useless at folding. I can iron, can't fold for love nor money. So I looked on Amazon and found that they do actually make that folding machine. It's where you lay your t-shirt on here, got some foldable arms, and all you do is you fold it in on itself and then finally fold it upwards, and it puts your t-shirt into a nice little square. Very, very cheap. I think it cost £8. And so I've folded up a load of my clothes this week. It literally took 40 minutes to do all of my t-shirts, of which I've got loads. So that was quite good. Then I wanted to do some stuff for my mother, so I bought these two things. Now, this is white vinegar, and it's very strong. It's industrial strength white vinegar, 10% acidity. And the reason I bought that is for this here, which is just a simple air canister, right, with a nozzle. And I was explaining to LFC a couple of weeks ago, saying about how he didn't need to bend over to do the weed killing in his bricks outside his house. That you can put a concoctional chemical into a air canister, a sprayer. And I decided that I'd clean up the front of our house for my mum to give her something nice to look at while she's looking out the window. So I bought this for a couple of quid, not very expensive. Again, Amazon, I think it was about £6.99. And you put this white vinegar in here, nearly up to the line that this canister will allow you to have. And then I put a cup of sugar in it. No, not sugar, salt. Cup of salt. Sea salt if possible, but normal salt will do it. And then some hand soap, liquid hand soap, just a teaspoon, 2 teaspoons. And I put it in this canister, mixed it, filled it with air, and then sprayed in all the little gaps between my drive, because we use bricks to make a pattern. We've got a pattern in ours, and it's got bricks of different colours to bring the pattern out. And the reason you do that concoction is the vinegar is an acid, so it kills the weed. The dish soap is a congealant that basically sticks to the leaves of certain weeds, so basically it won't just wash away. And the salt dries the roots of the weed. Put all those 3 ingredients into this canister, go outside, spray, and literally a couple of hours later you'll find that your weeds are going brown. After a day they've disintegrated and you can just broom them away. You don't need to use those horrible grouting sticks. I'm sure you've seen them. It's like a broom handle with a metal V-shaped bristle end, where you put the bristles in between the crevices of the bricks to get rid of the weeds. Now, you can do it with a pressure washer as well, but what you tend to find is all you're using, therefore, is water, and they just grow again. This, a couple of treatments of, should keep the weeds at bay through the summer and hopefully into the autumn, and then I can do it all again next year. And as I said, I've had a busy week because yesterday I decided I would go to a car boot sale. And you'll remember I did this last time, and I went to the same car boot sale, and the same guy was there again. And this is the second time in 2 months where I've gone with a tenner. Well, I go with a bit more than that, but I intend to spend £10 or close to it. So it's all X stock from Kex. He told me, yes, he bought a liquidation of a shop not too far from where we are, and he goes every Saturday to this car boot sale, and he sells his stock, and he sells it just under what Kex sells it at. So in other words, he gets what Kex would have been selling it for. And these are the ones that I picked up, and not one here cost me more than £1 other than one. And I'll show you what that one is in a minute. So there's this one, Assassin's Creed Black Flag, that was £1. This one, Assassin's Creed 3, that was £1. So ignore the stickers at the bottom. Aliens, Colonial Marines, £1. Clash of the Titans, PS3, £1. Duke Nukem Forever, PS3, £1. Diablo 3, PS3, £1. Final Fantasy 13, 10, 11, 12, 13, yep, £13. Need for Speed, The Run, PS3, £1. Fallout 4, Xbox One, £1. Forza Motorsport 5, Xbox One, £1. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And they all came to £1. So that was a tenner. But I did see one other one. This is one where we had to barter. And I said, we talked about, I was there last month, and I said I did a shout out for him. You know, not really a shout out. It was just what I did that week, really, in my blog. Um, and I saw this other one, which was a deluxe version of Origins for the Xbox One, and I asked him how much that would be. And I'd already spent the tenner, so there was no, right, what's the difference between £8 and a tenner? It's £2, so you can have it for £2. So I bartered with him, and I said, look, I'm going to probably make this a normal thing for me to do. So he said, I could have that for free. So that was free. Yay. £10, 11 games. Probably not quintessentially hard to get hold of, nothing rare, but can't really go wrong. And it costs the same price as what a monthly subscription would be. Although with the monthly subscriptions, obviously, you can play the newer games. For me at the moment, I'm not even playing new games. So this has done me well and given me the physical media. I've checked all the discs and the manuals are there. And I'm sure I'm going to have immense fun with those. And then we come to the last bit, don't we? Which is really going to be media playback. So we'll just go to here, camera, because I'm going to show you now the media bits that I do at the end, which is stuff that I've bought this week, but also stuff I've watched on TV. And there's a little bit at the end that I've thrown in that I'll just touch upon when I leave the blog finally. So I hope you get some great enjoyment of watching this next bit, because these are the things that I've bought or things that I've watched this week. So they might entice you to do it yourself, or they might just entertain you with what they are in the first place anyway. So we're going to switch view to media playback. I'm going to turn off the microphone now and let you look at a few trailers. See you on the other side.
away we go. Jonathan, what have you done?
To dream the impossible dream.
There's no escape for you. The High Table wants your life.
To right the unrightable wrong.
Tell me what you want.
Passage.
I can't help you.
To reach the unreachable star.
Do you expect him to make it out? A $14 million bounty on his head. And everyone in the city wants a piece of it. I say the odds are about even. Doc, 5 seconds.
John Wick, excommunicado in effect in 3,
2,
1.
and away we go.
To follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far. To fight for the right, without question or pause. To be willing to march into hell for a heavenly cause.
Sophia, we're not going in like the old days. Just a conversation.
Nothing's ever just a conversation with you, John.
The unreachable
My name is Miles Morales. I'm Brooklyn's one and only Spider-Man. And things are going great.
Oh, yeah. You were supposed to be here at 5.
All right, whatever.
Whatever?
Wow.
Whatever?
So are you like a cow or a Dalmatian?
I am the Spot. It's not funny.
Don't do that.
Miles's grades are pretty good. A in AP Physics
That's my little man.
and a B in Spanish.
Ooh, okay. Miles. Are you trying Mira, eso es imposible.
I gotta go. All right, bye.
He's lying to you, and I think you know it. Miles!
Want to get out of here?
Oh, Quinn? So wait a minute. There's an elite crew with all the best spider people in it?
Who's the new guy?
This is unbelievable.
This is the lobby.
Miguel O'Hara. The whole thing was his idea.
What's a guy gotta do to join this spider team?
You can never be part of this.
Don't even get me started on Doctor Strange and the little nerd back on Earth 1999-99.
Come on, go easy on the kid. He had a terrible teacher.
Peter,
Miles!
you have a baby?
I have a baby.
I'll take it from here. Miles, being Spider-Man is a sacrifice. You have a choice between saving one person and saving every world.
Send me home.
I can't do that.
I can do both! Spider-Man always...
Not always.
What about Uncle Ben?
If not for Uncle Ben, most of us wouldn't be here.
Can't stop me now!
You can't run forever, kid!
I can't lose one more friend.
Miguel, this isn't what we talked about!
You knew?
You have no idea what you're doing!
Everyone keeps telling me how my story is supposed to go. Nah, I'm gonna do my own thing.
All stations, stop Spider-Man!
You? Me?
And then I looked at my uncle and...
Let me guess. He died?
We'll find find a way to get home.
.742 requesting release.
I'm here to harvest. I have the location of a massive deposit of Orlac. The Queen's Lair. By my estimation, it's the largest anyone's ever seen. Someone is approaching.
Where are you from?
Nowhere.
How poetic. The Queen's Lair. Where is it?
Drop it!
Now, this is something I have never seen. In all my time in the green, a little girl. We're in the same trough, you and I.
You don't have a ship?
No, I don't. But you will find a way to get home. If you find that buried treasure.
Why should I trust you? You're a killer.
I am indeed. But are you? I can offer protection. I say together we ravage the Queen's Lair.
Even split.
Of course. I have sustained a wound. I was hoping you had some juice. Here is our offer. I don't understand. For the girl. That is a bold offer. You're gonna have to trust me.
You're trying to trick me.
It was all in the name of self-preservation, Bertie. It was nothing personal.
Test pilot Tuck Pendleton wants to make history. Supermarket clerk Jack Putter needs a vacation.
Jack, you're late. That's not good. You know it's coupon day.
Lieutenant Pendleton is about to be miniaturized, placed into this needle, and then injected into this rabbit.
Rock and roll.
But something went wrong. And Tuck's about to get a new destination. Inside Jack Putter.
I'm in a man.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm possessed!
Now, Jack's got twice the problems.
How you doing, Jack?
But he's double the man. With Tuck on his side.
Kick him more counts!
In his gut. And on his case.
You're not gonna bag groceries all your life, are you, Jack?
And only 24 hours left for Jack to get out of danger. So that Tuck can get out of Jack. Dennis Quaid, Martin Short. Give yourself a shot of adventure. Inner Space.
scientist, inventor, infant, searching for a way to tap into the hidden strengths that all humans have. Then an accidental overdose of gamma radiation alters his body chemistry. And now, whenever Stewie Griffin grows angry or outraged, a startling metamorphosis occurs.
Ow! I hurt myself changing this tire!
The creature is driven by rage and pursued by an investigative reporter.
Mr. Tucker, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
The creature is wanted for a murder he didn't commit. Stewie Griffin is believed to be dead, and he must let the world think that he is dead, until he can find a way to control the raging spirit that dwells within him.
And it's a bit of an eclectic sort of like set of videos I do there, and I run it down. John Wick is there because I bought the Steelbook this week, which I've shown you. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Well, Spider-Man's my sort of like main character, but I went to the pictures yesterday, and the film came out on Friday. Miles Morales is the new Spider-Man and has been around now in the Marvel Universe for quite a number of years, 10 plus years. But for me, Spider-Man has always been Peter Parker. But Marvel like to try and diversify, and they did it quite well with this character. They made him Hispanic and has all the trappings and the storylines that the original had, to address the fact that not every superhero has to be white. And they did it quite well. Now, I liked the first cartoon that was shown at the cinema back in, what, must be 2018. This film is equally as good, but if you're not a Spider-Man fan and you do not realize that this is a trilogy, and so this is the middle film of a free film set, you might come away disappointed. It's much the same way as Back to the Future 2 was, is the best way of explaining it. Back to the Future 2 had a weird ending, and everybody went, what? And then at the end of Back to the Future 2, they showed a clip of the third film that was only going to come out in 8 months' time, set in the Wild West. And it sort of like eased the audience, because now they realized there was going to be a third film and it was going to wrap it up, because it also said to be concluded, not to be continued. So they got away with it. But in this particular film, it has an ending, but it's so many plot holes, you'd go, that was an awful film. They didn't close this storyline or this storyline or this storyline or this storyline, and you'd count them all up and you'd say, what a shit film, till you realize all of those plot points end in the third film. So remember that if you're going to go and watch it at all. Prospect, as I mentioned, was something I watched on Prime last night, and I quite liked it. And I definitely recommend watching that if you've got a spare hour and 40 minutes just to watch a popcorn film. Inner Space. I had immense fun watching that midweek. I was caught short with watching something because Britain's Got Talent was on all this week. So to date stamp this blog, Britain's Got Talent week was on. And if anybody knows about Britain's Got Talent, they know it's 2 hours of pure torture every day this week until the final. It's why I did 2 live streams, and in one of those days I actually watched a film from my pile out at the back there, and I watched Inner Space, and what a great time I had watching Inner Space again. Brilliant. And then, because so many people have mentioned the Incredible Hulk to me this week, I started to go to bed a bit earlier and start to watch some old cartoons. And I'd gone through Dungeons and Dragons, which again is another Marvel cartoon from the 80s. And when I got to The Incredible Hulk, I recognized that all of the music in The Incredible Hulk was used in Dungeons and Dragons, and it was the same composer. And I looked at it a long time ago thinking The Incredible Hulk music from 1982 was brilliant. It suited it so well, forgetting that it was used in Dungeons and Dragons, and it equally fitted as well. Amazing. Marvel didn't know how to cut costs, but they certainly knew some talent that was out there. And the last one was just a fun one because everybody remembers the quintessential intro, I think, to the TV series The Incredible Hulk. And Family Guy loved to parody. And it was nice to see a shot by shot, side by side, of the opening intro to The Incredible Hulk and then the Family Guy doing their own interpretation with Stewie Griffin. And it was virtually frame by frame identical. Hopefully you get to see that, and I've got no copyright strikes. So I do apologise if I've mentioned all of that and some of those bits are not there, and that you're watching this blog late because I've had to re-encode it with bits taken out. And with that, I hope I have not missed anyone. I hope I haven't missed any questions this time, and I hope there's been some enjoyment here. I'm now going to go away, rest, and watch the Formula One and get ready for work tomorrow. But please don't forget there are other YouTubers out there that would love you to watch them. Mainmeister, I believe, will be on tonight with his live stream. And with that, I'm going to say salute to everybody and a big thank you from me. Bye-bye until next time.